started the stream a little bit early just to get any kinks worked out, if there are any to work out. Yeah, so we're just setting up here for a couple minutes. Put a little message in the chat, and then we'll get started around noon. Yeah, I'm just going to start working in about 2 minutes. Again, I just kind of have this up just in case anything crazy happens that I set up incorrectly. Setting up live streams in here is not the easiest in the world. Maybe there are things I could do to make it easier at some point. But we'll get into it in a minute here. One minute. So, get things started here in a moment. Shortchange anyone that showed up right at noon. I'll wait for them. How it goes. Hopefully, if anybody is live right now, just let me know if in the chat if you can hear me. Presuming that you can, everything looks right on my side, but like I said, it's a little bit wonky. So let me know that everything sounds and looks okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get into it. So shout out to anybody on the live broadcast right now. Also, anybody watching on the replay. I do these usually holiday times just because I figure people at home bored, especially before things happen. So, I don't know, it gives me a hook to want to do it. So, today is Independence Day. We call it Independent, as in Indie Music Day. But you know what it is, 4th of July. Yeah, I am trying a new angle today. I know you totally can't see me 100%, but you can see the equipment. And in the past, when I've done these, I've kind of had the camera set up sort of over there. And that's sort of a central view to one that I use for like podcasts and stuff like that too. It's just then you can see me walking around. But today I wanted to kind of focus on the equipment. I'm probably going to use just the equipment that's here. Maybe I'll pull out some surprises. Unless the beat really needs it, I'm going to try to avoid sampling today just because I don't want to get any, like, flags for playing records. Which aren't the biggest deals in the world because then you just mute it. Like, YouTube will mute it for you after, so it's not like you get in trouble, but it's still kind of lame to get those strikes. But, if I need a sample, I'll have it. Turntables set up right here, as you can see. So I'm going to get started. For anybody that's seen some of the older ones, you might have seen me use this guy here for drums, which is an SR-16 from Alesis. I got this, from eBay, where all equipment comes from. It's a really cool form factor and a cool drum machine that I had recorded some people using back in the day, like when it was already late era. So it's pretty cool to get something like this. But what I also saw recently is a video from this dude does really good videos called Bad Gear. if you want to check out his YouTube channel. And he reviewed a piece that I had like in the crib already from back in the day, which is the Alesis SR-16, which obviously doesn't look as cool, but it has a ton more drum sounds in it, and the pads are soft pads instead of those which are hard pads from the earlier, maybe mid 80s. This is like the early 90s. So, early to mid 90s. So I broke this out of the closet because I had this, and back in the day, I should say, before I had this MP, I had this and I had this guy, which Bad Gear also did a review on, which is the Yamaha SU-10. I have not put this back into rotation yet, but I have it kind of chilling out here, like tempting me to use it again. It was a lot of fun. But this is what I had. You talking like 1998, probably, maybe 97, but probably 98. I was using this as my primary sampler, and I was using this as my primary drum machine, and I had that plugged into a Tascam 424 4-track, and that was how I made beats. And then, you know, my wife got me this when we were dating, and that's why we're still married today. Things are meant to be. So, anyway, 2000 XL is what I use, obviously, as my primary beat machine right now. So I say all that to say, I'm going to start messing with some drums out of the SR-16. You know, it's the one instrument that you can't totally see from this angle that I'm going to use. Like I said in the description, I have the Wasp, which Behringer just put out maybe about a year ago. It's a cool little machine. I've got a Korg Minilogue here, which I'll use to control the Wasp, but I might even get into some Minilogue sounds. And then I got this Rhodes MK60. I'll get into talking about that a little bit later. It's a pretty cool keyboard. Obviously, it gives me like a full range of the keys and all that. So I was lucky to come across this really cheap, again, on eBay. And there's a whole story behind that that maybe I'll get into if there's time. But in any case, let me start working on the actual beats. You know, what you'll see me do is just kind of sample the drum machine. Obviously, I could program in the SR-16 if I really wanted to, but there's not really a whole lot of reason to do that. I've actually programmed in the HR-16 in more recent times. And it's cool. It gives you a different feel and all that, but for the most part, I just want the sounds out of it, and I have an MPC with like these amazing drum pads, so why would I not use them? So I'm going to mess around, try to find some sounds out of here. And, you know, as we go, please put any questions you might have in the chat. Like I said in the chat, I'll reread them, you know, so people on the replay can kind of hear them and get a feel for what's going on. And, you know, let me know audio-wise how things sound once music starts playing, if you can still hear me clearly and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really good kick, but I probably used it like yesterday or the other day, so I'm going to try to mix it up and do something different. So like when I was young and I had this, like, I was kind of disappointed because what it was doing, what this was made to do was really emulate like actual kick sounds. It didn't have that like 808 and that 909 and like the shit that I was looking for as a hip hop dude. But now I realize that like this is sort of like exactly what I needed. It's just I didn't know how to manipulate those sounds once they were recorded. So I mean, to me, that's an amazing kick. Because like what's better now for me is like, yeah, it doesn't sound like that traditional hip hop kick, but it also, but because it has that natural reverb on it that you really can't turn off easily, at least, it sounds like a sample, and it's not. It's something I have. So I'm just gonna sample the kick by itself because I do like this kick. So. So as we talked about in previous live streams, the only real drawback to the XL is the trim wheel. NPC users will know that the 2000 that preceded this had a little notch on the outside of the wheel, so you could like and really like kind of clock it down a little bit without spinning the entire time. For some reason, they took that away on this one. It does move faster as you go, but it takes a while. Anyway, so that's a trim kick. So we got like our ska sublime snare there that we don't want to use. I don't really want to go that crazy today. I like it, but I want something dope today. I think this was another thing that, like, I think when I was younger too, and it's still true to some degree. I'll probably use this one. Oh wow, that's crazy. I actually have this. Wow, I'm kind of nerding out myself more than anything, but like, probably can't. Nah, I'm sure you can't read that. But it actually has a name of like an old song from back in the day, like from like '98 that I made with like, if it was even the presence at that time, or if it's got the pattern. I mean, it's set to 160 right now tempo, and I don't feel like changing it, but I guess that was a drum pattern that I made when I was probably 20 or 19 years old. But yeah, this snare will do. I think that was my bigger thing with this, actually, now that I remember it. Kicks were always healthy in this thing, even the more what they sounded. Snares, you know, you gotta manipulate them a little bit, which I didn't know at the time. And I also didn't have a sampler to sample them into at the time. You know, like, so the drum sounds were the drum sounds. So the cool thing about like this drum machine is like it's super sensitive, like touch sensitive. So I like that. Alright, so yeah, let me trim that. That's what I was up to. So I'm gonna trim this there. So yeah, what I was saying is, like, you know, at that time I would have the whole drum pattern programmed inside the SR-16, and then I would just play the samples from the SU-10 over it onto the 4-track. So like I didn't have a way to manipulate the sounds coming out of the drum machine. I didn't have any like effects or ways to pitch. Like, so this snare is tough, but it's a little too ringy. But when I get it in a beat, it'll sound tight. I just need to pitch it a little bit, which I didn't have the ability to do back then. So I'm gonna play a drum pattern. It's gonna be ugly because I don't quantize stuff, and basically I think my heartbeat beats at like 86 BPM, so that's usually where I start when I just start playing a pattern freehand, and then I just adjust it, you know, like I don't, you know, for the most part I know I'm going to land about 86 most of the time, depending, unless I have like a particular pattern I'm trying to play, but, you know, help if I put the sounds on the pads. So we'll play a basic drum pattern, and then we'll really start to get more fancy when we start to sample synths and stuff like that. So That's a little bit fast for what I'm doing. So again, like all I do is just tweak. It's a little bit tedious and probably not what everybody does. Maybe it is. I don't know. I've never had a conversation about the tedium of making beats before with anybody, but usually if I play it and I hear it loop too fast, I do 4-bar loops with my drums 90% of the time. I went through a phase where I was doing samples before drums or just not doing drums, but now that like a majority of beats are made that way, I've kind of gone back against the grain and started doing shit with drums first. So, you know, if you're really into my stuff or have some recollection of it, you know, you can sort of piece together what I'm saying. Like if you listen to like Last Son's record, it's heavy and it's big, but it's not like a lot of kick and snare heavy. Same thing for Gajah's record, you know, which was produced around the same time. But, you know, if you go back earlier, certainly if you listen to Guillotine Crowns, the new album, Hills of Down, you'll hear like a lot of drum heavy stuff. So it just depends on the mood or the vibes at the time period. Oops. Now we're too slow. My screen kind of dims out sometimes, which worries me. But I've seen and heard of that happening on MPs a lot. It just started about a year ago for me. So now we're starting to settle into playing, and we're getting back up to 86 anyway. So that's how I'm actually locked into the fucking metronome, so it looped correctly. We're at 87 BPM for those keeping score. I don't know, like, I go against the grain with drum sounds. Like, I think people that fuck with my beats, like, usually do because of the drums. But in reality, like, any other thing that I produce, like, for all this shit, it's like a blunt instrument just being beaten into something. Like, a lot of, like, because I mix, like, a lot of, see if I can get closer into the camera range. No. Because I mix as well, I know, you know, what I'm gonna do with the drum sounds after, so I'm not one of those people that's gonna sit and like really tweak drum sounds. As long as I have the right source material for them, I know what I'm gonna do with them. Whether it's an old, you know, hip hop record that I can flip something from, you know, which is 90% break beats and James Brown anyway. Or, you know, drum machines like this one and that one. You know, I know my sources are good, so I know when it's time to mix that I'll be fine, you know? Pardon. Woke up yesterday, I was all amped to do this, and then, like, woke up today with a fucking hangover and allergies, so fun times. In the meantime, let's see. What do I want to fuck with first? Let's mess around with the Minilogue. So, I'm not fancy enough to have like an elaborate patch bay. So, I basically just pull cables every time I want to switch and do something different. So you'll see me do that a bunch as I work different instruments here. Minilogue, interestingly enough, is a mono output, which to me is pretty strange considering what it is. But oh yeah, everybody wants to hear me just blow my nose. That's what you really came here for. I should sample that and put it in a beat, or not. Okay. There we are. So I plugged into the right. Minilogue is a cool instrument, but every time you turn it on, it brings up the most heinous, like awful synth sound that makes you want to like return it and not use it. It's very odd, but once you start tweaking, like the polylog, I mean, I'm sure I could tweak this sound into something cool, but I don't really want to because I want to go to a cool sound, tweak that into something cooler, like that. So, all I'm doing is fucking around with the synths that I have and playing stuff as if it's on a record. I mean, I can sit and play chords and shit like that, but I like it to sound like it came from somewhere because that's hip hop. Like that's the whole point of what you're doing. So, it's not fucking rocket science. It's not like I'm the only person doing shit like that, but I think I do it consistently, and I'd like to think that if you hear my stuff, you don't know immediately that it's not a sample, unless I really, play something that's deliberately not a sample. But, so I'm just gonna kind of look for a cut of what I just played, and then try to play it over the, loop that up over the beat, and then keep adding layers and layers, and we'll see where it takes us. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. 90% of the time, I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I mean, most of the time I have no idea, but occasionally I'll produce for somebody that I know I want a particular vibe for, so a lot of times in that case I'll start with certain records or whatever because I know they might match the vibe, but otherwise it's a crapshoot. I've always been that way. I think it's because I'm so married to the idea of like audio as a collage and just slapping shit together. It's the most talent is what keeps you entertained. So like that style of production entertains me. So that's what keeps the stuff flowing. Again, shout out to everybody that is watching right now live. Feel free to ask a question, whether it's production, equipment, mixing, music, sessions, whatever. I'm here to chat it up. I'm kind of talking my way through making a beat. Usually I don't talk to myself when I make a beat, so I'm trying to keep this as entertaining as possible. But I do like, I come from, a group of people like early on that like would produce in front of me and all that. So I'm kind of used to having people chill. Some of my favorite times were like, when Short Fuse was in town or when Last Sons were in town, and I was just making beats. I'd wake up in the morning and make beats for them, and they would wake up and start writing. Like, if I could do that more often, I totally would with anybody that is down that I work with. But a lot of times I'm just in here alone. So this kind of brings back that feeling of like making a beat for somebody. So let's see if that actually happens. mean, there you have it, you know. I mean, I guess for some people that's a whole beat, but I'm gonna fuck around with some other stuff. I want to get into this Rhodes. I'm gonna get into that now. I actually have to literally unplug one thing to plug it in because I don't have enough outlets. I haven't used the Rhodes in a beat for a little bit, so I kind of want to fuck with it. Let's get down here. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see. Yep, it's on. And now I gotta get the audio output from it. Fun times. Where's that at? Do I even have a cable plugged in? Oh wow. It's been that long. So we gotta move a cable here. Steer more. I already took the power from the poor Alesis, but I'm gonna take the audio from it too. But, you know, it's the cool part of it. I'll put the beat on while I'm doing this. So, cool. So, let's see here. So, this is a Rhodes MK60. At some point, maybe I'll make videos for like different equipment. I'd love to do that if I had the time and the editing skills. But you can look this up. It's a Rhodes MK60. I, like many people, watched Luke Cage on Netflix and decided that I wanted a Rhodes. And then I'd always known what a Rhodes was and kind of knew what it sounded like, but that show obviously really crystallized it because it was solo electric piano. It was dope. The way they shot that, and shout out to whoever put that element into the script. It's really cool. Obviously, that Rhodes looked a lot different than this one. And that Rhodes is a lot more expensive than this one. What this is really like a late era, like early 80s sort of attempt. I think by this time Roland had bought Rhodes, so this is technically made by Roland, although it has the Rhodes name on it, which is cool. And it's sort of like a digitized emulator of the Rhodes. And you can hear, I mean, this is just the regular classic. It sounds like a Rhodes, you know. It might not be the highest quality, but, and these are weighted keys. So I got this on eBay for a couple $100 around that time, and it was shipped up from Florida. This thing's heavy as shit, and it has never moved. Like, and the cool thing is that this big flat surface on the top, so I'm able to put all this other shit here. So it worked out perfect. But it shipped up from Florida or from North Carolina or someplace where a hurricane was coming, and the guy was like, "If I don't get this to the post office today, it might not be available because I think my warehouse is going to get flooded and I can't save it." I was like, well, that's a real pressure-filled situation. And so the guy got the thing packaged in like a combination of like cut up boxes. You packaged it well enough for it to not be damaged, and it showed up here ahead of like a massive hurricane that hit wherever it was shipped from in the south. And now I have it, and like, it's funny, man. Like, for me, like, I'll buy like usually affordable level, either vintage gear that people don't care about anymore, or like, stuff like the Wasp. That's like, it's what you make of it, and so this thing, had a lot of reviews at the time, like this thing's a piece of shit and whatever, and I'm just like, yo, it has like Rhodes, has full weighted keys. It has Rhodes. It has like other sounds that you can fuck with. It has manipulators of it. You gotta be crazy to think this thing's a piece of shit. Unless you just want a straight up vintage '73 Rhodes. But anyway, enough talking. Let me listen to speed again. It's got like a straight up piano. You hear how touch sensitive they are. Obviously not a piano player, but I know what I'm doing a little bit. Second piano, little clavinet action, and a vibraphone. I feel like I used this on something recently, or I don't know, within the last 5 years. What I do a lot with this though is I'll go to the classic and I'll hit the bass, and then I'll use that as like bass hits, just because it's so warm. And even though I could be doing a shit ton more with this instrument, a lot of times I'll do that. There's ways to. It's pretty dope. Introduce some treble when it actually mellowed out the sound. So, and there's effects too. So, wow, that's dope. I'm hearing it in headphones, but the chorus adds like a lot to the fucking stereo aspect of that sound. It's like with an auto bend. Very cool. There's a stretch button. It's kind of whatever. And it's got tremolo, depth, and stuff on here. Kind of like where I had it. So it's got some cool little features. I don't know how rare this is. It certainly wasn't that expensive, but something to think about if you want to get those kind of warm keyboard sounds. And it's very, you can, if you hit it like a press button, it'll give you that warm, like muted tone. If you slam it, it gives you that like. So very cool. Little things like that make an instrument not a piece of shit. Like it's not something you could just find today. So. I'm actually gonna go live and live. How about that? go on Instagram Live as well. They're not going to hear anything, but they will see that we're live. So yes, I'm now live on Instagram right here, and I'm live on YouTube right there. Head over to the YouTube right now, Uncommon Records NYC, and you'll be able to check out what's going on. I'm going to mess with this beat a little bit. You're probably not going to hear much on the Instagram, but this is sort of a heads up that there is an event going on right now. Instagram added a new feature that I don't understand. It's got like a whole tutorial of like nonsense, but whatever. No idea why that's happening. Leave it to Instagram to make things complicated. So yeah, I'll mess with this bass line real quick for y'all watching here. I'm really just trying to get like a nice little hum to go underneath that harsh synth that I played. We'll see if it works. I may need to resample it, but we'll see. So, you can hear basically trying to add a little key touch now to it too. We'll see what happens. But you could tell what I was going for with that bass. I just wanted that underneath because the synth is chords evolving and moving around and pitching up and down, but I wanted to have that constant bass underneath. And halfway intentionally, halfway not. Sometimes it'll just be a matter of knowing what's gonna happen, and what's gonna happen is I'll have that bass there so I could do drops and take that synth out once I build this beat up more. Let's see where I was. I feel like some haunting higher range Rhodes keys would be kind of cool to add a little realness to such a robotic sci-fi kind of thing. That's my whole thing, is combining those feels. You want it to be electronic and ballsy and tough, but you also want it to sound like a human being did something, which is kind of why I like not quantizing and things like that, because then it sounds like a person did it instead of like, you know, quest for perfection will make you really less human. So, oops, I cut that too short, but oh well. Maybe it's a happy accident, as great Bob Ross used to say. So yeah, if you're watching on Instagram, I'm live on YouTube right now. On Instagram, you probably won't hear a whole lot besides me, but join the YouTube. It's in my bio on Instagram. In terms of the people on YouTube right now, we're gonna let them go soon. This is our show, but what I'm trying to do is just add more of that layer of like this is a sample. It's not actually like me playing everything. You know, again, you're watching it happen, so maybe it doesn't have that effect, but if you hear it from scratch, maybe it does, you know, and then, you know, a lot of it is like what I'm going to do after the camera turns off, too. You know, right now it's just a raw beat, so. Shout out to UBD, UBD598. Shout out, yo. Not an easily shout outable YouTube handle, but I appreciate you being here. I'm going to let the Instagram people go. You know where to do. Hit up youtube.com/Uncommon Records NYC. Peace, y'all. That does not need to be shared. That was just me standing there. Alright, so I'm going to take this through. Usually I can make a beat in about an hour. We're at about 40 minutes because I've been doing a lot of talking. So I'm going to bang out a couple more things here. I'm going to fire up the Wasp just for the sake of getting in the video. Doing something different. It's definitely going to give me another harsh, crazy synth sound, but maybe this will force me in a corner to do something different with it. So, let's see here. So obviously I got the MIDI plugged into the Minilogue. I probably don't have to explain it to most people, but So, could fuck around with the Wasp all day. It's really just one sound that you're manipulating the oscillators from. You know, I don't know how Behringer makes this shit so cheap, but they do. So, if you see one that you like, then I would say they're pretty good. It's maybe over time I'll feel like it's a little one note, but I've been making a lot of different things. And the cool thing about the Wasp, like I made a beat recently where I just ran the output of the Wasp through an effect pedal, and it totally changed a lot of shit. So. So we'll see if this weird ass sound fits in this beat. Maybe it'll ground me at the 3. We'll see. So a lot of what you saw me doing there was just trying to find, like, I knew it was going to work timing-wise. I just didn't know exactly what measure I wanted it on. So eventually it became like the 2-3 or 2-4, like just before the 3-1. So a question regarding improvising when making music. This is from Alex A, by the way. So shout out to Alex A. Regarding improvising, when making music, I notice I'll fall into the same patterns even when improvising. I'll be playing in a minute or ton, in a min a ton, or at a certain BPM. I don't know the first part of that, but a certain BPM I get. Any similar issues, how do you get out of it? You know, in terms of improvising, it's a different kind of word. I mean, this is production for me, but production is improvising. Just like even when I'm writing lyrics, people will use that analogy. Oh, well, when you're writing lyrics, you're just freestyling on with a pen in your hand, and like to some degree, that is how I write because I write really fast and I try not to overthink what I say. Even though I try to craft my words well, like I try to get it in my head before I write it. I don't just write blankly. And it's the same thing for like beats. Like I have a certain approach, and in terms of the question, like you know, it might not be a satisfying answer, but like I don't really overthink that kind of stuff. I've met producers that are like, "Oh shit, like all my stuff is too slow or all my stuff is too fast. I really need to do a slow beat or well, a slower beat or I really need to do a faster beat. Like, I got all these beats in the 80s. I really want to challenge myself and do like a beat that's 105." Um that's fine, if that inspires you. Like I said, like talent is really about what inspires you. So if that keeps it interesting and keeps it, you know, funky, where like you're like, oh wow, this is really important to me to do this, and it's a challenge and it creates something, then that's great. Um, but if it becomes something that works in your head, where you just get subconscious about making beats in the 80s, or you make too many beats that are like 120, um, I don't know. I don't really overthink that stuff. I don't mind if I make beats that are between 84 and 88 the rest of my life, because that's most of my beats. That being said, of course I've got some fast beats, that I've made. And a lot of times that happened through happenstance of like the way a sample paced out or whatever. Um, but I think that's what makes it interesting. You have to have like a defined sound to some degree. Once you doing this long enough, you want to be able to have a sound that's yours. And for me, I think that tempo and that BPM is a bit of mine. And like a lot of that is because that's the kind of tempo I like rapping at, and a lot of rappers I work with work in that range. I always make beats with a rapper in mind. I don't try to wonk out too much. So like usually like I know that there's a space that I could at least put in the mix where a rapper could jump in. So that's why I'm usually in the 80s. But some rappers like to rap faster, and they like faster BPMs, and I've gotten that from people sometimes. Like they'll be like, "Yo, can you give me something faster? Can you pitch this up?" Um, and I do, I'll sit down and intentionally make a faster beat in that situation, but I don't I don't get caught up in like, oh man, I'm falling into the same pattern. Now, if it came to a point where I felt like it was limiting me, you know, then yeah, maybe I would start to be like, no, tonight I'm gonna make sure that I'm at least 95 BPMs, or I'm gonna make sure that I use a different drum source or I make a beat in a different way. And it's like I was saying earlier. I think that's what you responded to, Alex. Is like, you know, um, earlier I was talking about how I went through phases where I was heavy drums first, and then I was like just doing samples, and then kind of filling in drums or not putting in drums at all. And now I'm like kind of back to the basics of like really doing heavy drum shit. Um, it just those things happen naturally because you subconsciously get bored in what you're doing and you want to do something different. And I think that stuff will happen. I guess the short answer at the end of this long answer to that question is, um, when you do it, you have to keep doing the music. You have to keep doing the work because over time things will naturally change. You won't if you've been doing beats for 10 years, it probably doesn't feel as like dramatic or forced that you're stuck at a certain BPM range when you're trying to improvise a beat. Because you know that it'll change. You've gone through that cycle of like, oh, I'm comfortable here, I'm comfortable there, I'm comfortable here, I'm comfortable there several times. If you've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, you might start to not, because you just don't know how the story ends yet. You don't know, like, oh, fuck, am I going to this is frustrating that I'm stuck making these beats at 90 BPM only. BPMs come and go. I would also say, like, even if it's not to put out, even if you're not into it, I would definitely try to make some sample based music because samples will tell you what tempo they are. Like what sounds good. If you're going away from starting with the drums, you're not setting your own tempo. The records are telling you what to play at. So that will mix in some of that spice for sure. What up, Jacob Mitchell? Big up, man. I think you've been at some previous live streams, so glad to have you back here. I think you're just back coming in, so I'll play the beat that I've made so far. And as I do that, I'll decide whether I want to add anything else to it. No problem, Alex. Thank you for the question. It's a good question, actually, too. Yeah. So another cool thing to catch up for people that weren't here earlier about the Alesis, I can't talk anymore. SR-16. The one thing that's always had is like your overheads. It's got dope crashes, dope rides, dope hats, no question. So I don't know. Now that I've been fucking with this, all of a sudden my beats are starting to show up with full kits again, like way back in the days. Cause like recently, you know, if you listen to my shit, like unless it's a drum sample, which I do a lot too, I like to take whole loops from old hip hop records and just reflip them. So you'll get like a lot of percussion in that. But for stuff I played, it's a lot of kick snare, and that's it. So it'll be cool. I'm gonna add a little bit of more overhead section to this beat, and I will probably briefly mess with a sample, just for the sake of shouting out all the sample heads that are out there, and also because this beat needs some more human interactivity, or else we're gonna just start up the sci-fi shit here. Again, like I grew up. I should say I grew up because it was early adulthood, but when I hit early adulthood, I got really into progressive rock, and that was around when the indie scene was building. So people know that story probably, or to some degree, but I love synthesizers. I love heavy, gritty fucking sounds, but I also wanted to sound like, you know, not like a robot factory, you know. Jacob Mitchell is asking, do you use Drum Broker or other producer drum kits? I do not. I assume that is probably like a drum kit that you can buy online and then download. It would be complicated. It wouldn't be impossible. So like a lot of those kits are great for people that are producing in software because you can just kind of upload them and lay them out on your keys and you know, go from there. As you can see, like all my production is still very much hardware. So if I were to download one of those kits, it'd be cool. It'd be a sample source. I could plug my computer into my MPC, you know, sample those drums. But I could just as easily do that off of old records, you know. So, which is just a little bit more fluid in the way that my setup is. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but I don't use those. Back in the days, I probably had my hands from working in studios. I probably had my hands on some drum kits. Because side note story, like part of how those drum kits started was back in the day. What people would do in the late 80s and early 90s, and mid 90s, is if you had a drummer come in for a song, he would play through, you know, the song, and he would do his drum part. And then a lot of producers, what they would do is they'd say, all right, now give me the snare, give me the kick, and they would get everything isolated so that when they went into the mix, if the guy missed his kick by a little bit and it threw off like the lead into a chorus, this is super high pop production level shit, they would take that kick and move it over like in early versions of Pro Tools and Digital Performer, and they would clean that shit up. And so that's what led to like drum modules, and then that led into drum kits, and then, you know, the interaction with hip hop culture with breakbeat records and stuff like that. That's why we have drum kits today. Anyway, Grandpa NASA with the old stories here, but that's sort of what that's about. But no, I don't use them, but I'm not against them. And what I was gonna say is, back in the day working in studios, I would pick up like DATs that were left behind that just had dudes like professional drummers like just laying out drum sections, and I definitely used those back then because those were fucking commerce back then. So good shit. Okay, so let me try to grab a ride from this guy here. Let me just listen to the beat one more time so I can remember what I was going for. These rides sound the same. I think they are the same. Wow. I haven't used a reverse ride in so long. It's like that fucking Beastie Boys song. Try to sample that just for old time's sake. I kind of fucked that up. not that crazy about that hat, to be honest. So I probably will not use it. Word up, Jacob. No problem at all, man. What's up, God bless? I know you've been in here a couple times in the past too, over the years that I've been doing these. Hope you are having a good day too. Thank you for watching me cook up some shit. Yeah, I'm gonna go into some records now because I feel like this needs to sound more human. And while it's a cool demo of what you can do, like from an underground hip hop perspective with just like the tools that are here, which again are like, you know, the main synth that you hear, for those that join a little bit later, is from the Korg Minilogue. That womp womp is from the Wasp. Behringer, the drums are obviously from this Alesis SR-16. And then the bass line, or the bass note, I should say, is from the Rhodes MK60 right here. So let's get into some records and see what that can add to it. I'm going to let this beat play while I look for records just to kind of guide me the right way. So I'm going to needle drop around a bit, probably a little more aggressively than I usually do, just to avoid like any flagging or any playing of music that I shouldn't or whatever. We'll see what I get, you know. I feel like I need like some, usually when I do a lot of synth, I like to add some brass, because again, it just gives it a little more of a human tone. Cool, well, no brass on this record, so there goes that idea. Try to keep my tradition of putting records away going here. How's the inner sleeve? Oh, this came in one of these wonky plastic sleeves. Yeah, I mean, it's a jazz, avant-garde jazz record. You'd think there'd be like one horn player, but no. Oh, I guess I should have read that it's just piano and bass. Cool. It's a good record, though. Had it for a long time. See if I can find something more fun here. Horn. Horn player can't get a break. Let's see here. So there it is. I was messing with this record the other day, so let's just keep coming back to it. I kind of want to tell you guys what I sampled, but I kind of want to make you work to pause this on the replay. Just find out for yourself. I'm an old school guy when it comes to samples. I mean, some people might actually be able to tell. You never know. I doubt this one, but This one's a little deeper in the crates. Again, let me hear the beat. Looking for a horn solo. So it's not a horn solo, but something I think might work. Maybe. So what I'm doing, so loud, hold on. I think that's all I need. I might not even need the last note. So a lot of what I was trying to do there was just sort of clean up the production. Like I left the synth that I played a little bit long, so when I tried to do drops off of it, it just dragged on, which wouldn't be a problem once I loaded the Pro Tools. But I just wanted to be able to manipulate it and play it by the end of this presentation here. So I trimmed it. But yeah, you could see, like, you know, maybe this is a common occurrence when I live stream beat making, but like, you know, everything sort of came from here, and then I just added one sample underneath it, and it kind of, to me, at least it kind of ties everything together. Obviously, there'll be a lot of different drops and things that'll happen, and there'll be mixing that'll clean things up, but a lot of, like, this is raw. This is just the beat off of the MP. You know, I would say one important thing, you know, for beat makers or producers that are watching, the beat doesn't stop getting made here. You know, this is not time to make a 2-track mix and send it to somebody. This is when you start to, you know, track your shit out on whatever software you're able to have, and then, you know, do your mixing and your panning and your arranging, and your drops happen for me in the computer. I could do them on the MP. I could drop this live right now and do drops and stuff, but then I'm locked into that. So why would I want to do that? You know. So again, everything I make really is with an MC in mind. I'd say even 90% of the instrumental music I put out, which is not a whole lot, you know, was made originally with an MC in mind, and then maybe added on to once I realized what I wanted to do with it. There was one question here from Jacob Mitchell. Are those effects coming from the MPC? So there are not effects happening. So I guess the exact answer is no. But the other answer is yeah. I mean, anything that you hear, unless I have some kind of technical difficulty taking place right now, anything that you hear is just, you know, different. You know, there's like natural reverbs and delays and arpeggio and stuff off of the stuff that I sampled that I, you know, knob turned enough to make happen, and then, you know, whatever the recording has on it, and together it all kind of sounds like, you know, maybe something that's effective, but this is nothing, you know. Like when I mix, you know, I put tons of effects on things. I mean, the idea is that you put an effect on almost everything, but have it sound natural enough that a beat doesn't sound like it has a lot of effects on it, or a vocal too. So, again, like, this is just the beat off of the MP. This is the beat, like the production. You know, if we end up using this for something, you know, you'll hear it at some point, and then you'll hear the difference. Some of my other, like, you know, the rhythm roulettes that are on the channel. First of all, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you know, make sure you follow. If you're into beat making, if you're into underground hip hop, this is a place to be. I try to provide, like, you know, a variety of different things, and if I had more time and editing skills, I would do a lot more. So, you know, hopefully we'll get to that point at some point with the YouTube channel. But that being said, yeah, some of the rhythm roulette stuff that I've done is out, you know, like, I won't say which, but it's out there, and, you know, you can kind of hear the difference at that point. Good question, Jacob. Good follow-up question, I should say. So the question is, do you use Waves digital plugins on software? So the answer to that is yes. I do use some Waves plugins in Pro Tools. I don't have any. Some people hate Waves because of price or whatever, but I actually think the prices have come down considerably. And like every holiday, they do a sale. They've done so many sales on the holidays where they've sold Waves plugins for fucking $10 and $20 and $30, and I've got almost everything that I want from them. I use them all the time in Pro Tools, so I don't always remember like, oh, this is a Waves plugin and this is a Avid plugin and this is a Massey plugin or whatever. So what I'll do is after this is over and post it as a rerun or a replay, I'll put like a list of some of the Waves plugins that I use a lot that I know are Waves in the comments section. I'll add that to the comments. Because I can tell you plugins I use all the time. I'm just not exactly sure which ones are Waves or not. So I'll put that in the comments right after it posts. It takes a while, especially for a stream this long, to end up posting. But yeah. Cool. Yeah. So all right, let's hear this beat, and I'll do some live drops here. And I think it's pretty much done, at least for the sake of this stream. Again, I'll add some drops and some all the fun stuff happens off camera where I don't use MIDI to drop the beat down. I should, but I don't because of a variety of reasons, including like mixing off of pretty much an analog board here. So what I'll do is I'll set the tempo in Pro Tools. I'll do my metronome, and then I line up everything. And you've either done that and know exactly what I'm saying, or you haven't and just don't even worry about it. It's not important. But that will take a little bit of time for me to drop the beat. It keeps me honest with minimalism, though, because if I make a beat that's 16 tracks, it's going to take me like 2 hours to fucking drop it. So I usually cut myself off, and then I add stuff after. So, you might hear this beat in a couple months or a year or so, and it may have extra stuff played on it or things moved around. Certainly a lot of effects and plugins and stuff. But that's how music gets made for me, So let's fuck around with the beat. I'm just gonna leave it. I ended up finding a use for that reverse ride. I'm just gonna bring it in here and there instead of like letting it ride the whole way through. And just as a little teaser, like to come in and out. So I'll do some drops and play this out on the MP just so you guys can really hear it clearly without me talking and interrupting it. And then we'll wrap it up and let everybody enjoy their 4th. So. So yeah, that's pretty much a wrap. I'm gonna shut it down at this point. Thank you to Jacob Mitchell. Thank you to Job Bless. Thank you to Alex A. Thank you to UBD598. Especially thank you to everybody who had questions. Have fun chatting it up with everybody. I'm gonna hit stop on the stream. Right about 90 minutes anyway. I get to have the fun of dropping this into Pro Tools now. So, peace everybody.